The rehab work on an old concrete structure on the outskirts of San Francisco's central business district hadn't even begun when the development partner started shopping around for a buyer.
The building didn't meet any code. Not a single building system worked.
It was an eyesore. It was the ultimate white elephant.
There was really no investors interested in redevelopment type of opportunities.
There were some market rumblings of what a bad idea that is.
But inside the shell was a pearl of a structure in a market about to emerge, creating the perfect storm for an ambitious redevelopment deal in what would become one of the hottest real estate markets in the country.
Obviously the most spectacular move yet.
With their names stamped high on a shiny new office building in the middle of one of the most desirable locations for tech companies in the country, Riverbed Technologies made a grand entrance to show San Francisco they had arrived. But just 2 years earlier, these cameras would be telling a much different story.
Now it seems like a no-brainer, and it seems like everybody's doing it. It wasn't obvious at the time. There were some very difficult decisions.
It was the middle of the recession, 2010. California was about to dissolve all its redevelopment agencies when TMG Partners acquired 680 Folsom Street, an old vacant building outside San Francisco's bustling downtown financial district.
It was viewed as such a white elephant that it was marketed as a teardown for residential. We looked at the building a little differently. There were intrinsics to the bones of the building that we felt were difficult, if not impossible, to replace.
Large floor plates, tall floor-to-ceiling glass, great location.
TMG's equity partner, Rockwood Capital, saw the building's potential and also thought it would be a good down cycle investment.
When we underwrote this transaction, we underwrote it as really a land investment. We had the opportunity to potentially redevelop the building if the market ever recovered. And at that time, it didn't appear that it would.
We bought it. We waited for a while, the market started to recover, and we thought we could do some pre-leasing.
We hadn't even prepared marketing materials at the time we leased. Just the market came back faster than any of us really anticipated.
And the unbelievable thing about this project is just how quickly it leased.
All the tenants that are out there looking for big, efficient blocks of space, there wasn't many things like this on the horizon.
3 years before they would step foot in the building as tenants, 2 major leases were signed with Riverbed and Macy's.com. And before construction started, the developers decided to sell it. Boston Properties bought the building in August 2012.
I think what drew Boston Property Company to it was fairly pre-leased, but they could add some value beyond that. It was in Soma, and they were one of the first people, along with some of the other bigger players, to realize that Soma was going to take off.
We thought it was an exceptional location. It had large floor plates, and it had excellent transparency with the floor-to-ceiling glass.
With the building already 85% leased and construction ready to start, Boston Properties worked out a deal to keep TMG on as the developer.
It was a very complicated transaction from the standpoint of multiple parties. You had a construction loan involved.
It was the kind of deal that got negotiated every day until it got signed and closed. Literally, it was a sign, go hard, and close deal.
We decided that the only way we were going to be successful with the building was to make it a completely modern building, which meant we would keep the columns and the floors, but we would gut essentially the rest of it.
It was kind of its own monolithic block and very heavy in terms of its exterior expression. First ideas, of course, were to find ways to lighten its exterior appearance while also bring more daylight into the space and to make it more engaged with the city.
Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill designed the main building at 680 Folsom. 2 floors were added to the top, and a new glass facade completely revised the image. Being in San Francisco, the building's structure would need to be brought up to seismic codes to stand up to an earthquake. The building's structural core was reshaped and completely rebuilt, compelling all floors to lean uniformly and spread inelastic action evenly throughout the entire steel frame.
It pivots on a bearing, and what that does is it forces the building to tilt like this. Rather than bow out and break, it forces the whole thing to go like that.
By the time 680 Folsom Street opened in January 2014, Soma was the new hotspot for tech and media tenants in San Francisco.
We look at where we are today, and everybody wants to invest in San Francisco. A huge change in psychology in a very, very short period of time.
Big floor plates, high ceilings, new curtain wall. Of course people want that. Well, at the time, The tenant demand was mostly in the CBD, the big tenants. The tech activity wasn't there. Creating something that at the time didn't exist, but they knew tenants would want. That was the challenge.
We were constantly revising our plans, constantly making sure that we had a project that was suited to the end user market, so when the market came back, we were ready.
We created a building that you couldn't arguably build today in San Francisco.
I think as Mort would say, who's the chairman of our company, too much of a good thing is still a good thing, and we feel that way about this property.
The ability to envision a future for an obsolete building in a transitional location during a down market cycle was a key factor in the project's success, but it also took considerable development design and engineering expertise to craft and execute a plan that would work to reposition the building. 680 Folsom Street now has a modern image with green and resilient building features and serves as an important new place in the heart of a cool neighborhood called Soma in the city of San Francisco.